Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast series in the category of Ancient Wisdom Demystified. Today's topic is the profound meaning in Genesis, the creation of man and woman.
Welcome everybody. We are doing slightly in a different format today's video due to the lockdown. My grandson is asking questions from his flat and I'm answering from my house.
So, Tata, how can you explain this rather difficult explanation of the creation of man and woman in the Garden of Eden?
The first question that was raised is, how can you explain this rather difficult to explain creation of man and woman in the Garden of Eden? Yes, it can be explained only through a mythology for common understanding. A mythology is not a physical or historical event. We saw how Moses adopted a story from the Sumerian mythology, which could practically map into the idea he had to explain the creation of man and woman in Genesis. But he wanted to communicate a very deep concept, which can be understood in a spiritual, metaphysical way only by those who are initiated into deeper wisdom. But there is hidden beneath this story a string of ideas, a sequence of understanding that we need to bring out to fully appreciate what is written in the Genesis.
Did Moses know that this is an unbelievable story?
Yes, Moses knew that this is an unbelievable story. But in common language, only a story can be told with a specific instruction that it is divinely inspired and has to be believed without questioning. This is a precondition for belonging to any group, especially for the Israelites. When they were coming out of Egypt, the cohesion of the community was very important. This was primarily why the 10 Commandments and the earlier text were written down and given to them so that they could follow it.
What is the profound meaning in the Judeo Christian creation story?
Yes, I will take some time on this particular question. There is a very deep and profound meaning in the Judeo-Christian creation story. To deal with this, there are basically two prerequisites. One, we need to keep an open mind because we have been conditioned by a belief system which has been very strong in the last 3000 years. Second, we have to redefine God in the context of a creator. I assume that the true seeker of truth who is watching this video will appreciate the spiritual meaning with an open mind. The God who creates cannot have the following attributes: an afterthought and course correction, like as though you are driving a vehicle on a road, because God is beyond time, and hence God and creation are concurrent processes. God of Eden is full of contradiction from this perspective.
Then what was going on in the Garden of Eden?
Then what was going on in the Garden of Eden? Let us look at the Hebrew Bible. God creates man and woman, puts them in the garden with a specific instruction not to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge, just 9 hours after his creation. Disobedience means death, but Adam disobeys him in the 10th hour with an active role from Eve. And God changes the punishment from death penalty to banishment. This somehow doesn't seem to be rational and able to pull the story together. Let us look at it another way. Two souls which are in the image of God is self-propelled to a state of lower consciousness through this entire story of Eden. If you read Genesis, the true creation of human beings was a concurrent act of creating man and woman, not separate. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. The descent of consciousness from pure state to the manifested material state is what the whole story is about. When God created all things, including human beings, He creates everything from Himself. So you cannot have a God who has attributes of leaving man to fall from grace, then get into the act of redemption later on. So we have to re-examine the whole concept of the fall, the original sin from this perspective. Though in the earthly time scale you see creation proceeding sequentially, God's plan, it was instantaneous. The entire multiverse, its manifestation, and all its components have no time dimension in God's mind. But it gets a time dimension in the limited consciousness of the human mind. The Garden of Eden story tries to capture in a time frame the fundamental act of God's creation.
So, what was done in this time frame? The role of creator and of man.
So what is this time frame? What is the role of the creator and man? The divine plan, which is timeless, is to sanctify the entire creation as it descends from the Godhead to the earthly manifestation. For manifestation, you require two components. One is the objective entity, the other one is consciousness. This is beautifully explained in the tree of life in Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism. The purpose of creation of man in God's image is to sanctify the entire creation from fundamental particles to the entire universe. This is the reason God gives man dominion over all creation. Genesis chapter 1, verse 29 and 30. It was the later patriarchal edict that changed the story in Genesis 2nd chapter, as man being created, and then Eve proceeding from him as an afterthought in the mind of God. The first creation of Adam and Eve, as we saw, in the pure primal state, cannot induce higher wisdom in a materialistic world. Hence, man and woman have to take a lower level of consciousness by eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge to descend to a state of duality. Without duality, you don't have an objective consciousness. But still, infused with divine consciousness to elevate the lower levels of manifestation to Godhead, he proceeds in what we call as a redemptive process. The whole concept of redemption is the raising of consciousness to the highest level. This is the meaning of the fall of Adam and Eve and the redemption through the second Adam, Jesus Christ.
So, does this mean that God was in full knowledge of the fall of Adam and Eve?
This question is very relevant. If you say God is all-knowing, omnipresent, omniscient and omnipotent, this entire plan was always in the mind of God. It was not an afterthought. If the gates of heaven were not opened and man cast out into the world to sanctify it, as sons and daughters of God, the gates of Eden will always remain shuttered and God would be alienated from His own creation. This is the beautiful, profound concept of the creation of man and woman in the Garden of Eden.
This is a fantastic and deep meaning. But how do we participate in this journey?
Yes, Joel, this is a fantastic and deep meaning. But how do we participate in this journey is a valid question that you asked. Christ taught us the way. Every spiritual leader teaches the way. As Teilhard de Chardin says, that all creation and manifestations are moving towards the omega point. Teilhard de Chardin is a Jesuit anthropologist and also a great theologian. The Alpha and Omega is the non-dual, undifferentiated divine consciousness. Let us journey forth as divine agents of sanctification. How do we do it? through our compassion, love, affection, empathy. All these beautiful human qualities are nothing but divine qualities. And through this, we participate in the process of sanctifying the entire creation. This is what I have been telling in a number of videos, moving from the egocentric to the ecocentric world.
Thank you for watching. See you next episode.
Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic life.